Hello, welcome. This is my spiritual awakening story. It's a bit long story, it's gonna last at least 45 minutes, I think. So get a cup of tea, relax, get ready to listen to something that might be very different from your experience so far in life. Or it might be very close to something you're opening yourself to understand now. This is a very personal experience that I'm sharing with you with love and appreciation. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I feel an intuition, a call from my inner being, from my spiritual perspective of myself, which I will explain a little bit longer in this video. For doing so, okay, so I studied in a Catholic school, which allows me to explain the big difference from my perspective between religion and spirituality. Most of you, I think, already have an idea about it and understand the concept, but I just want to make it clear. I think everybody is spiritual. There is no other thing around. Every plant, every animal, everything has a physical part and has a part that we cannot see. Same way we cannot see the radio waves that comes through when we listen to music in a radio, or we cannot see the Wi-Fi. We cannot see the atoms. There are lots of things, actually 99.999 of what it's out there according to scientists. We cannot see it with our eyes. We see a very limited spectrum of light. And I'm very aware of it because I'm a filmmaker, and my whole life it's around visual and how we, with audio and visual, how we do create an experience that is similar to reality. So we make a virtual reality of a story. We tell a story in the same way how we experience life. So everything started for me with this understanding of religion in the school, which actually I really appreciate, because the San Vincent congregation, or the Catholic Church, is divided in many communities, and there's a community that I respect a lot, which is the San Vincent one. That is the one I studied when I was a kid in a very poor place, very poor city at that time, that didn't have much access to education. So a Spanish congregation made school there, and there are many now. They taught us about science and normal regular curriculums, but also they had a part of spirituality which I didn't really connect with in a very deep level, but I did connect in a heart level. They were things like compassion, appreciation, respect, love. Everybody was important and respected, and that type of environment, it's great for education, I think, in comparison, because I had the opportunity to study in another type of schools. That love that was always present, and that respect for everybody and for life was very nice to experience, and I felt protected because of that. It had a big impact in my life, and since then I understand those values as basic for human behavior. So I didn't have this connection with the victimism of Jesus Christ, a lot of stuff that was going on there. But I had a very deep connection with these ideas, and with music. People play a lot of songs and music that for me were funny. Like, actually, these religious songs, I used to play them, sing them with my friends after. I was studying in a school that wasn't associated to any Catholic or any religion after in high school, and we still, when we were like for camping or traveling as a group, we were always sing these songs. It was kind of a funny thing, you know, like very naive, that we knew it, you know, it was a bit ridiculous to believe, but at the same time those songs are all about love and respect and things that we believe in it. So it's still naive, but we still kind of found some wisdom on that music. So that's something I kept my whole life. And I still vibrate when I listen to some of those songs that I used to sing when I was a kid, because some of them are really good in a musical way. So I had this first connection with spirituality that was beautiful. That was they never imposed us religion. For example, it was optative. If you didn't want to go to a religious class, you just do something else, and they were okay with it. And that made it absolutely lovely. And it was mostly women, it was nuns. And I remember one day I behaved very badly, I think. I don't remember exactly what I did, but I did something I knew was wrong. And the main punishment always was to go and face the director of the school, and I was very afraid, you know, and I went to this major nun called Sort Erika, and she was an authority, you know, and I was very kind of, oh my God, what she's gonna do. And she said, what did you do? And I explained what I did, and I said, I'm sorry, but I thought it would be a nice joke. And then she said, all right. She opened a box full of chocolates and sweet stuff, and she said, have one, don't tell anybody, and meet you later. And that was it. So this environment of love and, you know, not punishment, of, you know, trust, made me value it a lot, and it was beautiful for my education, and I appreciate it forever. So then after that, I experienced the opposite. I went to other types of school that they didn't have this, you know, this love for the profession, for teaching to kids, for the importance of, you know, education in terms of bringing opportunities to the life of other people. It was more like people doing their job and just, you know, not caring much. And I realized that I wanted that in my life somehow. When I studied in university, I studied computer engineering. It was a very long degree of 6 years that I never finished. I totally failed on it. But the thing is, like, I studied that for 2 years, and most of the assignment weren't related that much to computers, were more related to engineering, and it was civil engineering. I don't know how you say that in English, but it's like a level of expertise which is higher, so you're the boss. So there were lots of difficult matters and subjects that I actually didn't connect with because I wasn't really interested. It was very interesting to have the experience of knowing and understanding everything they were talking about, but at the same time not feeling excited and not really wanted to proceed with the education. And it's the first time I experienced a lot of social class division. I didn't experience that much in my environment of my school that I described it, because they treat us all the same and with love and appreciation. And also in high school, I studied in a school that it wasn't religious, but it wasn't concerned about religion, but it was a very humanitarian, socialist kind of environment. So then this new environment was way more competitive, and also most of the classes were, minded to business and making money and profit, which is okay, but I wanted a little bit more humanity behind it, And I realized that humanities were really important for me, and I wanted to learn and do something different, not only computers and numbers. And then I had a class that was called Cultura Religiosa, which is religious culture. And this class was about talking about not only Catholic church, because the university was Catholic. So they had this mandatory class that everybody wanted to avoid, oh no, this class is a problem. And I had the same kind of perspective at the beginning, they want to impose you religion. But it actually was the best class I had in that university and that career. It was a class about understanding this fundamental question, who we are and what are we doing here. So instead of being a class about Catholic religion, it was a class about every single religion, which is very interesting for me because I didn't know anything, and I knew those religions were there and I didn't took the time to understand them in my life. And I think it's a very important thing, at least understand other perspectives. There are so many, there are infinite divisions of different cults, and it was very interesting to have a perspective on those subjects, and also to open myself to philosophy and understanding also this perspective of existence in a more philosophical way, because they also talk about philosophers like Socrates or Heidegger, or people trying to understand life, Kant. So it was very powerful. It was the best class I had, and it was the first time we were talking about the things I wanted to talk. So I realized that spirituality was a big deal for me, and not a spirituality necessarily in a traditional way, spirituality in a scientific way, in a philosophical way. So I think telepathy in particular was a big deal for me. I really wanted to, I have this inner inclination of inner nature of understanding that telepathy is possible somehow, but not know how we think about it. I think it's a more compassionate thing. It has to do with hearts more than mind. So I think our hearts, and every time we feel compassion and we understand the other person without the need of too much talking, I think we are resonating in a different level. So I was always looking for information about that. So after that, I moved to film school, and I studied that for 4 years. It was a 4-year degree where I was exploring with the film creativity, and I didn't dedicate much time to my growth, my spiritual growth. But when I finished university, I finally could dedicate time to understand my spirituality. So I went into lots of scientific research. I read about science. Everybody talk about, science knows things, and we say, yeah, okay. But I think it was George Harrison, one of the Beatles. He said, no one has responded to the most elemental question, which is, why are we here, and what is going to happen after this? So everybody's like, yeah, we're busy, we're doing things, and science understands everything, and we have the answers, and we have to get things done, and for what? What's the point? What do we have to get done in order to accomplish what? So I needed to answer this question, because otherwise I couldn't keep living. I had this awakening, this awareness that, and because of my film studies and understanding of semiotic and how the perception of life is a total illusionary construction, I wanted to understand or have an experience where I could understand that unknown world that was there, that I could feel and somehow relate to. So what I did, I researched what science was offering. I didn't find any answer to what I was looking for. The Big Bang, and then before the Big Bang, we don't really know, and it's expanding, and that's it. Why are we experiencing this consciousness in this planet, and what's going to happen after this? I want to know, how is it possible that no one in this planet knows that answer? So, and I wanted not a naive answer like, oh yeah, we're going to heaven or you're going to hell, because those moral stuff that they were so out of place for me, like not valid as an answer. The official science tends to be like a religion from my perspective. If you don't believe certain concept and you don't accept certain dogmatic idea, and I think that it's very strong in Europe, that people replace the religion for another religion where it has authorities and priests that and you gotta believe in a blind way in certain stuff, and you cannot go against those rules, and that's limitations. And for me, science is the opposite. The only thing we know is that we don't know. So we are always asking fundamental questions and always saying maybe there's something out there that we don't understand. And without those type of questions, we will not be flying now. There is no evolution possible. So if you believe that it's already everything discovered, and the only thing of finding results is in a particular lab or some other people, I think we're all creators. We are all in the leading edge of the evolution and the expansion of our species. So I don't think it is just like a particular special people among us that have the ability to expand that consciousness of the group. So I found my answer in books from Brian Weiss, the first person who was a scientist, which experience in his life was so strong and so powerful that he had to accept spirituality in his life. So he has to come out of the arena of what it's official and go into spiritual science, which was something totally new for him. And he was the director of a hospital. He was having a career where he didn't need to lie to anybody. He was a scientist, and he put at risk his whole career for opening up this information to everybody. I'm going to explain a little bit the story. So it's Brian Weiss, this doctor. He's a psychiatrist. He was very good in his profession. I mean, he is still very good in his profession. And someone asked him to try to treat a patient who is this woman. He tried to treat her in hypnosis. She started talking about past life and her death and connection to other type of experience, not only her physical life. And this story has made so much sense. And Brian Weiss started writing everything she was saying without not giving it just. He was just trying to understand the psyche of his patient, and he didn't put any judgment on it. He thought, well, if she's talking about dreams, let's try to understand it. So he started writing stuff or recording. And at some point, his patient, during a hypnosis session, she started talking about her past life and also about spiritual beings being with her and talking directly to her. And one of these spirits wanted to talk directly to Dr. Brian Weiss. And this entity was talking directly to Brian Weiss. And I found it fascinating and very powerful. It made sense for me, and that's something I always had in my life. It's not that Brian Weiss convinced me of something. It's something I already knew, that I needed a confirmation, and I needed someone to give me permission to believe in it more. And since I read it, it resonated a lot with me. So I started researching and listening to his meditation and looking for my own regressions and connection to other type of physical lives. And I had really good success in doing that and realizing that there was a whole world unknown that I could access by myself. That was the first thing I discovered with Brian Weiss. And then, apart from him, I found other scientists very interesting. I really like Nassim Haramein, who is a self-taught scientist, and he has very unconventional ideas about what happened with the pyramids, that there is no scientific clarity about how 30,000 pieces of stone can get cut in that perfect way and get together with copper tools. There's no scientific engineering clarity about, if we today we would like to build something like that, it will be a huge, massive challenge as a culture in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the desert. Try to build something like that with the machines and the sophistication, with the technology we have. Their stones are so big that there are not many ways of doing it. So when you start figuring out this type of things, and you have a curious mind, and you just don't accept things easily because you believe in logic, and there's not logic when someone said to you, well, there are millions of infinite planets, and probably there's only life here. It doesn't make any sense. Sorry, there are plenty of possibilities that there are other things going on. And I wanted to see if there was other people doing and having contact or something. So there are other books I found about people that actually died and they came back and they tell the story of what happened. And it's fascinating. There are many authors about it. So after death experience, I think those people are the only one who we could asked about these subjects, because they've been dead and they remember being alive back. So those are the type of things I was researching, because that's real science. You go to the source of the truth. I had a partner. She has an experience with more people drinking something called San Pedro, which is similar to ayahuasca or other mescaline drinks. Peyote, I think, is quite famous. So it's a cactus that has the ability to opening your brain somehow, so you can perceive stuff that you don't normally perceive. And I was very curious. Another friend told me that he had experienced telepathy, and the friend with whom he drank it, and they both recall the moment when they were talking to each other and experiencing telepathy, and they were, oh my God, we are experiencing telepathy, and we're 100 meters away from each other, and we can talk and understand each other. So he told me that, and also since my partner did it like 3 times, and she didn't thought it was difficult or terrible or a complicated thing, I researched about scientists that drank this and they taped themselves explaining what they were experiencing during the 70s and 60s. There was a lot of research about it. And it was so fascinating and interesting. And since I'm from South America, which is a continent which is very open in this type of subjects, it's very common that people go to South America to open their vision. They look for this experience, for ayahuasca or any other cactus, or just meeting people in general. There are a lot of shamans. So this is not I think at least 1 in 3 of my friends had done this type of experiences. There is another one that is very common, which is the temazcal, which is another type. It's more like a sauna experience. They get into like a teepee, but it's more rounded, and they put hot rocks in water that generates a lot of humidity, and so they stay there under pressure for a long period of time. Those are ceremonies that are very, very common in Chile. At least once a month, people do that, and they experience the same kind of awakening to another level of consciousness. So I was very interested in a scientific way of exploring this. I'm not a person who is fan of psychedelic, or I'm very sober. I don't drink alcohol, for example. I never smoked. I don't, in general, I'm not that inclined to those kind of experiences. It's actually, for me, it's more like the opposite. I like to focus, to have clarity. So I decided to drink this cactus, and I asked my very best friends to come and do it with me. So we had a reunion in Copiapó. We planned it with my friends. This cactus is everywhere in Copiapó. It's in one in every 3 houses you can find this cactus. So a friend of mine brought a big one. We just boil it, prepare it, make like a juice. We blender it, and we went to a nice beach we like, that it's special for us, and we just drank it. And I had 2 doses because I knew that I would not do it again, and I wanted a full effect. I wanted 100% effect. So when I drank it, this experience is very powerful, and it's the most ridiculous thing I've done in my life, and I don't advise to do it unless you know what you're doing. I didn't know what I was doing, and I think it was a bit painful. So the first hour, I experienced what people can experience with any psychedelic, which is very common. So the cactus is called San Pedro, and the Spanish people call it like that because Saint Peter, is the saint who opens the gates of heaven when you die. And that's why they call it like this, because it was technically this special entity that will give you access to heaven, to the afterlife. And that's what I experienced with it. And the Aboriginal people in South America, they used to drink it very often in ceremonies. It was a common thing. And actually in Bolivia, I remember someone selling it or telling me this story that people sell it on the street and saying 10-hour trip, 10-hour trip. That's what they were saying, 10 horas de viaje, 10-hour trip. And they had this white polar, San Pedro and polar, so you can put it on water and just drink it. So it's something that a lot of Bolivians and Peruvians, the Incas were very connected to it, the Quechua people, the Aymara people. And so they know about this. They have this awareness of life. We decided to drink this thing. And there was a good friend from my childhood with me. And he was very discriminated when he was a kid, because he was late and he was disorganized and he was a total rebel all the time without a cause. I mean, with a cause that he was a bit depressed and he couldn't fit in much in society in general, because he was really into his video games world. And he has a twin brother. Both of them are my best friends when we were kids. But only one of them was there drinking this cactus. And what happened to me was, at the beginning with the experience, I was afraid, very afraid, because we did drink this in a place where we were actually open to anyone who wanted to interact with us, and there were people riding motorbikes around us. And I realized we were very vulnerable. We were in the most absolute vulnerable state. And I brought my girlfriend into this, and we were next to the beach, and some of my friends wanted to go into the water. And I was panicking because I thought someone would die, So I was trying to control them and gather them together so we'll be safe. But the effect I was having was so powerful, so high, that I couldn't even control myself. So at some point, I could experience the higher level of consciousness I ever experienced. So this is the first hour of the effect after I drank the cactus, because it's an effect of around 10 hours. So you can imagine how difficult it was, that experience. I still recall every single second. And what you have to understand is that I was absolutely conscious of everything. It's not that I went to sleep or I hallucinate, or I was more conscious that how conscious I am now of this recording. I was conscious of absolutely everything. I mean, and that was the first hour of discovery, you know, that being aware of your cells in your body, for example. Imagine that. Imagine understanding every single fluctuation of the ocean and why and how, and predict it, being able to predict. And it was like total matrix effect. And it's a very similar thing a lot of people experience. So it's like a higher level of awareness. And then I look at my hand and I could see the atoms and everything. But I experienced also like an alteration of time, like things were very slow and sometimes really fast. And I could see like every fluctuation of time, like it was layers and layers and layers of change that I could, you know, see through them, how we were traveling through this transformation and transforming ourselves every second. Even more space-time that we normally experience with our eyes. I was experiencing life in a total different level. So this was pretty much the perspective that I thought I would find, the idea of I will drink this in order to experience this, so I will believe in it 100%, because I was already believing in that we are spiritual beings experiencing a physical life. I wanted to experience 0.001 of what I was getting. I was getting 1,000,000 times more than that, you know. It was if experiencing what Neo experiences in the film Matrix, like going out of this construction of what we call reality and realizing that there is way more true behind this hallucination, and being aware that physical life is a collective hallucination, a creation of our consciousness. And seeing how the mechanism of it works and how you crystallize as a human and how you can disconnect from it. So that was the next experience. So I was afraid of my friends dying, right? That something will happen to them. And so I knew I needed to explore this fear in order to go to the next level. It was like a need of a call that I had. I remember talking to my friend that I knew from childhood, and he was explaining me, you know, I had this experience. I'm so happy because my parents are happy about me because I'm studying laws. And I was seeing his mouth vibrating and seeing his heart vibrating and seeing his whole being vibrating and predicting everything he could say, and understand him in a deeper level, in a compassion level. So I knew absolutely everything that could emanates from him. It was like seeing a flower that you know how it is going to open, and there is no need for him to talk. So I could understand his childhood, why he was discriminated, why he was complicated with so many things in his life, and why he was my friend, and why I accepted him, because diversity was something important for me, and considering that everybody is important, and so many things that I could understand in just a second without any thinking related. I mean, I will never ever understand his psychology so well. You know, I could understand why he was studying laws, because it was a career where he can talk. He has to talk in front of all the other students, and he is like getting a recognition from all the rest of the people. And that's when he was in the school, he had the opposite. The whole school was discriminating him, and he was in the lower possible level as a student. But he managed to become a lawyer in this career. He is the first one. He was doing so well, and he was doing a lot of public speaking, and his parents were proud of him. since before his parents were ashamed of all this problematic children. So I understood 100% of his psychology and why he was trying to explain this to me. But he didn't need to say anything else, because, and that's for me the first telepathy experience I had. But it wasn't only that. Like, I could totally understand every single insect, everything that was around me, every little plant or every sea animal that I could touch. I was in the ocean. I could see the whole beach and understand the sun, and it was incredible. And that was what I wanted. I wanted to understand. So I got the answer. You can understand everything. All right, open your brain and see what is out there. And that's pretty much the experience of the cactus. It's a high, powerful experience of pure consciousness. And then I had to go back to my fear. So I was afraid of people dying. And so I took myself to somewhere else somehow. And I recall my face full in the sand and being worried about breathing. But I couldn't control much my body, and I was wondering, maybe I'm just gonna die. Maybe that's what I'm so afraid of. And then I faced this question, is it that what you're so afraid? And then when I accepted, when I said, yes, I'm gonna die. I made a terrible mistake. I drank this thing. I wasn't careful enough. I don't know what I was doing. Oh God, I made a huge mistake. So what happened is, like, I drank so much. I didn't thought about, everything happened for a reason. But I normally, when I was younger, I try a little bit of marijuana, and it has an incredible effect on me. I get very high with anything. Alcohol, same thing. I drank 1-2 beers and I was totally drunk. So I didn't consider that sensitivity that I normally have. So then I realized that this was way too much. So I accept my death at that point. And in order to accept it and look at it, I had to look at every single thing I'm afraid of in life. And that's not what you want to do, trust me. Because we live life in order to, day by day, gradually become the person and reconnect with who we are. But letting every resistance, everything go at once, it's a very painful experience. And just looking at those things, at those, fears and everything, was the most painful experience that I had in my life. And then after I had that, I went out of my body, and I could see my body from above, and my consciousness being aware of, I was this guy, and this guy's gone, and no longer identify with this person anymore. And that's something that I found it later in the Tibetan books of the death, that it's something you can experience, which is the destruction of the ego. So you don't believe anymore that you are this particular human being, this persona that we created. So you see yourself from above. So I could see this persona dying there. That's what I assumed. And I just went up, and I could see this experience from above, like a little wave in the ocean that was disappearing, going away, with another millions of experiences that I had in that life, and another million of experiences and lives that I also had. So I went out of my body. I became pure consciousness, spiritual. I became one with my spirit. That's what I understand now. And then from physical perspective, it's supposed there were like 8 hours. But for me, it was an eternity. It's something that is still happening. It's something that
there was no time there. It's a different realm where I realized I call it a vortex at that moment. I didn't know that Esther Hicks, the great author I found after Abraham Hicks, which is a person who connects with another level of consciousness. I didn't know that she would call this the vortex, but I was thinking I'm in the vortex, and I can always come back here, and this is who I am. And all my life and all my death are connected through this vortex. And then I just fluctuate as a consciousness in another level of understanding of everything. So I would not be able to put that experience in words ever. I knew it when I came back to my body. I knew that I would be vibrating with my mouth like my friend, trying to explain stuff that there was no way I will be able to explain. But anyways, I'm enjoying the exercise. So after this eternity as a spirit, I woke up again at the beach, and I could breathe. I have sand everywhere. Felt, oh my God, I'm this human again. I'm this guy and I'm alive. Oh my God. And I start breathing, and I'm like, this is breathing again like a human, because I spent an eternity as a spirit. So I had to, it took me a big buffer of reconnection with this human being. And I spent at least the next 2 hours reconnecting with life. And that was the most beautiful process ever, I was recovering my senses little by little. I was breathing the fresh air of the ocean, and I was, oh my God, living life again, this beautiful life, and I'm aware again, I'm breathing. I was so sure that guy just died and it didn't matter anymore. And so, wow, I'm this guy again, I'm breathing I'm smelling this beautiful smell, and I start seeing the sunset, because we were there the whole day. So I could see the sunset, and it was so beautiful, the most beautiful sunset, but not because the sunset wasn't anywhere special. It wasn't something special. I was so open to love absolutely everything. And this perspective has been in my life since then. Also, my friends, they didn't have this kind of super high experience, so I was very excited telling them everything that happened to me. It was absolutely a life-changing experience. It totally changed my life and my perspective. So I no longer felt I was a human. I felt gradually more as a spirit. And now I'm crossing the threshold, and I'm feeling 100% like a spirit, and looking at life from a different perspective, from like a mirror of this consciousness. So at that point, I needed some time to understand what happened. And the good thing is, like, I did a trip to Australia after drinking this cactus. And I had a really good time in Australia. And I found this author that I already mentioned, which is Esther Hicks. And she's the first person, she still experienced telepathy somehow, because she connects herself to a consciousness, a higher level of consciousness. And she kind of downloads information directly from this source. And I think that's the higher level of intelligence that we have on planet Earth now. It's getting very common. There is a lot of channeling now, and I think I'm interested in it, and I probably will move into that in the following years. But for the moment, I have this access to this information through Esther Hicks, Abraham, which it's the same information I found by myself. It's just a confirmation of everything I know, and also some tools to be more practical and use that knowledge in physical life somehow. And there is another higher level of consciousness. Bashar, it's Daryl Anka, it's a channeler. Also, he connects himself to a higher level of consciousness. In this case, he thinks he is connected and linked to an extraterrestrial consciousness, which is called the Esasani civilization, which a lot of different people and channelers understand that this is the civilization that it's guiding us in our evolution. And I'm very interested in seeing so many people channeling Bashar and channeling this information, and it's part of, from my perspective, of the awareness and the spiritual awakening that the whole planet is experiencing now. We're reaching a level where a lot of people are awakening to who we really are, and it's very powerful. And I think the result of what's going on, we will start seeing in the following years. So yeah, this is my experience of spiritual awakening, and this is what I've been experiencing, and I hope it will be helpful for you to know this information, to probably reconnect with experiences that you may have with any other similar plant or master. And I highly recommend to have a different approach to this than this radical approach that I had. And I super recommend meditation. Meditation is the same path, and it's the most gradual and enjoyable way for me to go back to that reconnection with my spirit. I absolutely recommend Ananda Mandala meditation. I will leave the link, and it's a video on YouTube, and I'll put it down there. And I recommend, if you want to reconnect with your spirit and see what I'm explaining to you, and find a proof, but not a proof of someone else, a proof of yourself directly, and reconnect with your spirit and have a communication with it, with the real you. I recommend this meditation. It's just half an hour of breathing, and in this half an hour you will, if you follow the instruction, it's highly probable that you will experience a diminish of resistance, because normally what is happening in our personality construction is that we're resisting the love of this spirit. We're resisting the well-being, the infinite love that it's just coming to us because of fears or because of indoctrination that we had to survive in physical life without, like we're being all connected to other people and other situations, and we have lots of beliefs and perspective that kind of limit ourselves. So now I know that we all can reconnect with our spirit without the experience of suffer or pain, and I think meditation is one of those ways. But also every person has a different way of reconnecting, from my perspective. I believe in this. Every person has a different way of reconnecting with their spirit, and they could do it through, for example, music, sexuality, art. They can do it with anything they feel connected with. Some people cooking, some people love so much something. Whatever you love is actually the call from your spirit. So the whole idea is that, for example, a group of birds flying in harmony, they are absolutely connected with a higher consciousness. So they listen and feel this joy of being connected with this. So they all move around in harmony as a group. And I believe we humans, we can do the same. If we all just listen to that connection with this consciousness, we all can align and live in harmony and travel, and move around like this beautiful gather of animals. You can see it in fish and birds. We can do the same just by tapping into our major joy, into our passion. So when we are connected with that feel of absolute love and appreciation for life, we are actually accepting our connection with the divinity through our heart. That's why the heart is in the center of our body, because the heart, it's very important. It's, from my perspective, is more important than anything else in the body. So I feel in our society in general, Western civilization, we understand that the brain and logic and rational mind, we try to impose that as the most important. But I believe that the heart and the intuition is actually more important. So it's, of course, there's a balance between everything. That's my perspective. We knew this, and that's the most beautiful thing I know now, is that I did this on purpose. I came to this world, and that was the main lesson I learned in this cactus experience, and it's maybe the same thing that every Disney movie talk about, which is trust yourself. You knew all this. You actually knew what you were doing. You knew you would wake up in this way. You know you would find this guidance. So you will wake up and live an awakened life. And everybody else, you also know all this stuff. And the fact that you want to know a bit more makes me inspired. And I want to share that for you, because that's what it's meant to be. Everything is how it was meant to be. And when you understand that, then you don't try to change other people or make other people understand things that they don't want to understand, because they have their own spirit, their own guidance, spiritual guidance, that they can just reconnect with it. And there is nothing you can do better than their own spirit. So there's nothing I can do better than your own spirit in order to guide you. The only thing I can do is just to confirm that calling that your spirit is doing through this audio. And that is how it's meant to be. And it's a pleasure for me to share this experience and tell you what already works for me, and tell you that awakening is the most beautiful thing in life. It's just discovering that everything you want to achieve or you're looking for in life, you already have it, and you can feel it right now. So that's the beauty of an emotional manifestation of unconditional love, and that's what I've been practicing since I'm more and more aware of my spiritual counterpart. And yeah, I hope you will find some inspiration in these words, and I hope you're gonna have a lovely life and a lovely transformation and recognition with who you really are. Thank you.